Greetings and welcome to Learn What's New in macOS 26 Tahoe, a video tutorial from themacu.com. By viewing these lessons, you will learn how to use the significant new features, changes, and updates coming to macOS. The first change we need to mention is the name. Apple has shifted its naming convention for its operating systems from sequential numbers to a year-based system. Instead of continuing with macOS 16, the updated operating system is called macOS 26, reflecting the upcoming year 2026. This change aligns across other platforms as well, with iOS and iPadOS adopting the same format. macOS does keep the tradition of having a California-based version name, which in this case is Tahoe. The new naming approach simplifies understanding of Apple's OS versions in relation to its release year, making it easier for users to keep track of updates and compatibility. The other major change coming to the entire Apple platform is a new design language called Liquid Glass. This marks a significant evolution in Apple's overall user interface, focusing on enhancing visual depth, fluidity, and interactivity. You will notice this change right away when upgrading any of your devices to their 2026 version of the OS. Other significant features covered in this tutorial are folder customization, a revamped and expanded version of Spotlight, updates to the Photos app, and more. macOS 26 Tahoe is a free upgrade and can be installed from System Settings, General, and Software Update. With that, let's get started with a look at the new Liquid Glass design language. To get started, we're going to take a look at the new Liquid Glass design language that is being introduced with macOS 26 Tahoe. This new look will be coming to iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, and Apple TV as well. When you first update to macOS 26, a welcome screen will be displayed with a Liquid Glass styled font. On an empty desktop, we don't have any blatant changes from previous versions of macOS. But down in the dock, notice that the app icons have been redesigned with a sort of frosted look. Here's a direct comparison of the Books and Photos app icons, with macOS Sequoia versions on the left and macOS 26 Tahoe versions on the right. They are still clearly recognizable, but the frosted glass look is apparent. I'm going to change to a more colorful wallpaper for the rest of this lesson. Control Center is another area where we can clearly see the liquid glass transparency and reflections. The revamped Spotlight displays a liquid glass animation to show its new interface. Jump into Safari and notice how the page elements remain visible but out of focus behind the toolbar and tabs. This is even more apparent on web pages with colored backgrounds. Here we can see the pill-shaped buttons and how they refract the light on their edges, which causes them to stand out from the background. You might also notice that everything is more rounded. There really are no more sharp corners in the Mac interface. Bring up a Finder window, and the rounded corners are even more apparent. The corners of windows and app icons now have the same or very similar radius to the physical corners found on a MacBook, iPhone, or iPad. The Finder sidebar is its own floating panel. Switch to dark mode, and we can see this a little better. Notice the edge of the sidebar panel will refract the colors of the desktop wallpaper. These are subtle effects, but they are apparent throughout the new Apple operating systems. At the top of the display, notice that the menu bar no longer has any background by default. The menu names just appear over the wallpaper. In menu bar settings, we can activate a subtle menu bar background. In the upcoming lessons, we'll delve into customizing folders, icons, and widgets, which can significantly change the appearance of the Mac interface. In the Appearance section of the Settings app, we now have an icon and widget style section. These four options allow us to adjust the style and color of app icons, widgets, and some other system icons. Currently, default is selected, so we see our app icons in their normal full-color style in both the Finder and dock. Switch to dark, and most of the icons change to a dark gray or black background. Some apps will need to be updated for this to be applied to their icons. Changing to the dark icon style is not the same as switching to dark appearance mode, which will apply to Finder and app windows as well. In my opinion, dark mode looks better with the dark icon and widget style. Notice that we can set the dark style to always be active or switch to auto, which will apply the dark style at night and the default style during the day. We can also do this with appearance. Next, let's switch to clear. This applies a frosted glass look to our icons. I think it looks better with the icons in the dock than the ones in the Finder that are just overlaid on a white background. We also have a dark option for the clear style. Here's a look at some widgets in the dark and light clear style. Next, we have the tinted option. This lets us choose any color to apply to icons and widgets. When this is selected, the menu below will apply to icons, widgets, and folders. In any other style, this will only apply to folders. With this set to automatic, we get the default blue folder color of macOS applied to our icons and widgets. Use this menu to choose a different color. In the Choose Color pop-up, we can use these sliders to select a specific color and the opacity of that color. So if a green is chosen, its opacity can be dialed back to make it less intense. Use the color picker to select a color from your wallpaper. We can switch our tint between a light and dark version, which will generally apply a black background to our icons. A dark or light tint can be applied when in dark appearance mode as well. Having these 4 icon customization options allows for a huge variety of appearance options in macOS. For the first time on the Mac, we can change folder colors universally, or one by one using tags. When using any icon and widget style other than tinted, the menu below will apply only to folders. So we can now select a color here, and all folders in the Finder, Desktop, and Dock will take on that color unless they have a tag applied with a different color. If I open up the Project Files folder, the one named Images is yellow. This is because the Work Projects tag is applied. If I remove that tag, the color will change to green, which is currently set as the default folder color. When we right-click or control-click on a folder, we have a Customize Folder option that brings up a panel that displays our favorite tags at the top and a variety of symbols below. Click this Add button for a list of all tags. Here we can select a color or any custom tag to apply to the folder. Go down to Edit All Tags, and we jump into the Tag section of Finder settings. If you don't want folders to take on the color of their tag, that can be turned off here. Now the folder retains the default color, but the red tag is still applied and displayed in the dot below the folder, which is the same as in previous versions of macOS. And remember, you can also remove a color by removing the tag. Back in the Documents folder, notice that the Project Files folder has this symbol overlaid on it. This is applied automatically by macOS because the folder is shared. In macOS 26, we can now apply a huge variety of symbols to any folder we want. Head back into the Customize folder menu, and we can scroll through several categories of symbols. I'll find the camera icon under Objects and apply that to this folder. Symbols get overlaid in gray onto folders. But we can also apply emojis in full color. Back in the Customize folder panel, we can click down here for the full emoji menu. We can scroll through or just do a search. This time I'll apply the camera emoji. Folder colors, symbols, and emoji will appear in any Finder view mode, such as columns or list. To remove a symbol or emoji from a folder, go back into the Customize folder menu and click Clear. This gives us more flexibility with folders, as well as new ways to organize them using color. And I think applying symbols or emoji can make it quicker to identify folders when browsing in the Finder. Spotlight, the universal search bar that has been a part of macOS for about 20 years now, is always ready to launch an app or find a file. In macOS 26 Tahoe, Apple has enhanced Spotlight by introducing several new features. The basic functionality of Spotlight is still the same in macOS 26. I'll open Spotlight with the shortcut command spacebar. If I enter the term Maps, the first result is the Maps app. And below we have a variety of web links and files in the results. In macOS 26, Spotlight also offers 4 other more specific functions. We have an app launcher, a dedicated file search function, the ability to run quick shortcuts, and a clipboard search function. We've split each of these into their own lesson. First up is the Spotlight app launcher. When I invoke Spotlight, the app launcher option won't appear unless I move the pointer up toward the Spotlight search field. Click, and the launcher opens and displays a row of app categories at the top. Then a row of your most often used apps, and below that, all apps installed on the Mac in alphabetical order. At the very bottom are utility apps. To get back to the standard Spotlight search, we can click the back arrow up here or hit the Escape key. Rather than needing to click to get to the app launcher, we can also use the shortcut Command 1. But this will only work after Spotlight is launched. So we can hit Command Spacebar to bring up Spotlight, then Command 1 to move into the app launcher. Command 2, 3, and 4 will work with the other 3 Spotlight functions. Start typing to begin a search of only the apps installed on the Mac. Click on a category to view only those apps. We can then search within that category if needed. In the upper right, click the More button, and we can switch to a list view of our apps rather than the grid. We can also choose to view our iPhone apps, which can then be launched in the iPhone mirroring app if that has been set up. All iPhone apps will have an iPhone icon in the lower right corner. Launch the Sports app, and that opens over in the iPhone mirroring app, which lets us use the app here on the Mac without needing to pick up the iPhone. I find that having iPhone apps visible creates a lot of clutter in the app launcher, so I typically leave this off. The Spotlight app launcher is replacing Launchpad, which for many years served as the built-in app launcher in macOS. Jump into the Applications folder and notice that we now have an app called Apps. A double click on this will simply launch the Spotlight app launcher. Drag this into the dock for one-click access to the app launcher. The app launcher is a nice addition to Spotlight and a step up from Launchpad. It's a fast, clean, and intuitive method to open apps. The file search function in Spotlight is going to be similar to performing a search from the Finder and selecting this Mac, which searches the entire Mac rather than just the content of a folder. Use Command 2 with Spotlight launched to quickly get to the file search function. We can search for exact file or folder names. If I enter DSC, we get a long list of results. We can also view the results in a grid. Add more to the search term to find an exact file. Select from the results and just hit Return to open it. Notice that we can also click and drag directly out of Spotlight results. So this could easily be moved to my desktop or placed into a document or email. Next, I'll search for the term Iceland. Below, we can filter results by file kind. Click Screenshot, and a couple of files that have the word Iceland within the screenshot are displayed. We can also quick look with a press of the spacebar when a file is selected in Spotlight. It's also possible to only search for folders that contain the search term in their name. Double-click to open the folder in a Finder window. Or hit the Tab key with a folder selected in Spotlight to view that folder's contents in the Spotlight window. We can then search only the contents of the folder from here in Spotlight. This provides a quick way to do a dedicated file search from Spotlight that will only display files and folders in the results. Shortcuts, or actions, in Spotlight allow us to quickly set up and execute specific tasks from certain apps without leaving Spotlight. Use Command 3 to jump to the Actions section of Spotlight. We can search for or scroll through all the available shortcuts. There is a huge variety here from a ton of different apps. Let's do a few examples starting with composing and sending an email. Double-click the Send Email action, and we then need to enter our message, subject, and recipients all right here in Spotlight. Click the plus button here to add more than one recipient. Double-click to send the email. Over in the Mail app, we can see that message in the Sent mailbox. Next, let's create a calendar event. All we need to do is enter a title and then a time or date range. If we open Calendar, there's our event for this Saturday. Next, let's quickly get the travel time to a specific location. Here in Spotlight, we can click the driving parameter to switch from driving to walking, transit, or biking. I'll stick with driving, and then we need to enter the 2 locations to get the driving time between. I'll use my current location and then enter Costco. Double-click on the exact location, and the current drive time is calculated using the Maps app. As you start using these shortcuts, quick keys will be assigned to them automatically, or we can add or edit our own quick keys. Just click in the quick key area to enter or edit a quick key. So any is the quick key for the new calendar event shortcut. From Spotlight Search, when I enter NE, the top result is the new event shortcut. Hit the return key to run the shortcut. It's a good idea to browse and test out these actions and add quick keys for those you might use regularly. The final new feature we have in Spotlight might be its most useful, and that is a clipboard history list which gets the Command 4 shortcut from within Spotlight. This will display anything we have copied or cut on our Mac within the last 8 hours. If I head into Safari and copy a selection of text, that will be added to the clipboard list in Spotlight. Copy a file from a Finder window, and that also is added to the clipboard list. Notice that the kind for each item is listed along with when it was added to the clipboard. To the right of each item is a copy button. So if we need to use this text again, just click, and now it can be pasted into any text field or document. Right-click on a file in the clipboard list, and we get options to paste, copy, share, delete, or open the file. This is an image, so it will open into the Preview app. The delete option here won't delete the actual file. It will only remove it from the clipboard list. If we're working on a document and bring up the clipboard in Spotlight, simply double-click on a text snippet to paste it directly into the document. This will also work with images. So if you're putting together a Pages document, utilizing the clipboard in Spotlight can really speed up that process. We can also click and drag items out of the Spotlight clipboard and into another folder or directly into a document. Copied text that's dragged out to the Finder or the desktop will be saved as a text clipping, which is just a plain text file. From the More button in the upper right, we can clear the clipboard history list, or jump into Spotlight settings, from which we can deactivate the clipboard search feature. With this turned off, the clipboard option in Spotlight will no longer appear. We can get this back anytime from the Spotlight section of System Settings. Having quick, easy access to items in your clipboard is a very nice addition to Spotlight. With macOS 26, Apple has made significant improvements to Control Center. We can now add, remove, and rearrange its controls. Unlike previous versions, where certain controls were permanently set, options for adding controls were limited, and the order couldn't be rearranged. With Control Center open, head to the bottom and click the Edit Controls button. That brings up a large panel from which we can scroll through all the available controls, or click a category to view only those options. There is a wide variety of options available. We have 6 different screen capture controls available, 8 desktop and Finder controls, and even a calculator launcher. If I enter the term Voice up in the search field, a Control Center button for the Voice Memos app comes up. We can now drag this directly into Control Center. Or click the green Add button, and we can choose to add this into Control Center or put it up in the menu bar. Most Control Center items can also be added to the menu bar. And several can be set to only appear in the menu bar when active, such as the sound controls. This means this control will be visible in the menu bar only when sound is playing from an app on the Mac. From within Control Center, while in Edit mode, we can click and drag to rearrange items. Right-click on a control to change its size. We can choose from small, medium, or large. Small is just a circle with an icon. Medium is a pill shape that takes up half of one row in Control Center. And large will either be a square shape or an even more elongated pill shape. Currently, both the sound and display controls are set to large. If I make both medium, they can fit together in a single row. The small controls don't display the control's name, so if you have not memorized their icon, it can be hard to recall what each one does. Expand them to medium or large, and the name of the control will be displayed, which can make it a lot easier to quickly see what it is. Of course, we can remove any of these with a click on the minus button. We can use up to 8 rows of the grid here in Control Center, so there is quite a bit of space available, but you certainly don't need to fill this up. Having a minimal number of Control Center items can make it more convenient to use.
Yes, I understand.
Live activities from our iPhone can now be viewed in our Mac's menu bar. For this to work, you need the latest OS installed on each device, and the iPhone mirroring app needs to be set up and activated on your Mac. In notification settings on the Mac and notifications from iPhone, make sure Live Activities from iPhone is activated. Next, we just need to launch a live activity on our iPhone. This can happen automatically with things like ride-hailing and delivery apps. In this case, I'm going to launch the Apple Sports app and turn on Live Activity for this baseball game with a click on this button. I'm doing this from the Mac, but if this is done directly on the iPhone, it will work the same way. I'll close the iPhone mirroring app now, and up in the menu bar, we can see the live activity for that game. Click on it for a larger view of the score and play-by-play updates. Double-click, and the Sports app will open in the iPhone mirroring app, where we can see more details and stats. Turn off the live activity on the iPhone, and it will be removed from the menu bar on the Mac. With macOS and iOS 26, Apple has added a native polling feature to the Messages app for iPhone and iPad, making it easier to collect opinions, make decisions, or have fun in chats, without relying on third-party apps. All participants must be using iMessage, which means the chat will have blue bubbles rather than green. In this example, I just have a one-to-one chat, but we can still create a poll. To do so, click the Add button down here, and then the Polls option. This brings up a multi-choice list, which the creator of the poll can then fill in. We can add as many choices here as we want. At the bottom, I'll include the question, which in this case will be, where would you prefer to go to lunch? Send that, and now any of the recipients, as well as the sender, can provide a vote in the poll. The recipient in this case is replying from an iPhone. Notice that the creator of the poll or recipients can add another choice if they like. And it's possible to vote for more than one of the choices or retract a vote. So this can be a fun feature here in Messages as long as everyone in your group chat is on an Apple device that's updated to iOS 26 or later. We can also now add backgrounds to our iMessage chats. To do so, click on the recipient or recipient's name at the top of the chat. In this panel, we have the New Backgrounds option. We can select from any of our own still photos or choose one of the animated preset options. I'll select one of my photos, which then appears in a preview panel. In the lower left corner, we can choose to apply a black and white, duotone, or color wash filter to the background image. Click Set to apply the background to the chat. Anyone in the chat will also be able to change the background at any time. So it might take a few tries to find one that everyone likes. We can quickly switch back to no background as well. The Mac Photos app has a couple of significant changes in macOS 26 Tahoe. First is the liquid glass redesign. In Photos, this is most apparent in the toolbar. These buttons are pill-shaped and reflect or refract the colors of the images as they scroll behind them. Second, the sidebar can now be hidden. Simply click the sidebar button up here to hide or show it. The keyboard shortcut for this is Ctrl-Command-S. With the sidebar hidden, we can still access our full library and our collections. Currently, we are in the Library and All Photos view. We can use the toolbar at the top to change to Months or Years view. The shortcuts for these are Command 1 for Years, Command 2 for Months, and Command 3 for All Photos. Use the shortcut Control 2 to switch to Collections view. Scroll down in Collections, and everything that was in the sidebar except for Projects is visible here. Use the View menu to jump to a specific section. Using Photos without the sidebar visible lets us focus more on our photos and videos themselves rather than the Photos app interface. Next, we now have a pinned section within Collections. This will be visible in the sidebar and in the Collections view. Pretty much anything we see here in the sidebar can be pinned. So whichever of these items you tend to view the most often are good candidates to be pinned. To pin this Hawaii album, just right-click on it and choose Pin. That adds it to the pinned collection. I'll also pin the Panoramas media type and duplicates from the Utilities collection. Oddly, we are not able to pin items by dragging and dropping them into the pinned collection within the sidebar. As of now, we have to right or control-click on the item to pin it. Right-click on a pinned item to unpin it if needed. If the sidebar is hidden, we can still pin items while in the Collections view. Click and drag to reorder the pinned items. In macOS 26 Tahoe, we now have a full-fledged phone app that links to your iPhone using Apple's continuity features. From this app, we can make or receive calls, view and listen to voicemails, and more. First, let's look at what we need for this to work. We need a Mac with Apple Silicon running macOS 26 and an iPhone running iOS 26. Both need to be signed into the same Apple ID. Handoff needs to be enabled on both devices. This can be done in the General section of System Settings. The Mac and iPhone also need to be signed into the same Wi-Fi network and should be within about 30 feet of each other to ensure a good connection. On our iPhone and phone settings, we need to have calls on other devices activated. Below, we can set which of our other devices' calls can be allowed on. In phone settings on the Mac, make sure calls from iPhone is activated. Notice we also have access to Hold Assist, live voicemail, as well as call filtering here in the Mac phone app, just like on iPhone. With the phone app set up on the Mac, we can pretty much do all we can with it on our iPhone. Here in the upper left, we have our favorite contacts. Click on the Edit menu to add or remove contacts from your favorites list. Below is the Recent Calls list. We can use this menu to only view missed calls or only voicemails which are transcribed. Click the blue Call button to begin a call from the Mac to that contact. When a call is selected, we can view details for that contact, including a list of their recent calls and voicemails. Anything we do in the Mac phone app will sync with the phone app on our iPhone. Click the number pad button up here, and we can dial from right here on the Mac. When we make or receive a call on the Mac, it will appear as an alert in the upper right, just like a FaceTime call. If you're someone who spends a lot of time working on your Mac and also makes or takes a lot of calls, this change can be a nice productivity boost. This free lesson is from our full tutorial on the new features in macOS 26 Tahoe. To view every lesson without ads, become an all-access member at themacu.com/details. Apple introduced the Journal app a couple of years ago with iOS 17. Until now, it was only available on iPhone. Now we have the Journal app on iPad and Mac as well. When first launched on the Mac, we will get the options to sync Journal with iCloud. If this is turned off in iCloud settings on the Mac, then any journals or entries we create on the Mac will stay only on this Mac. I have iCloud Sync activated for Journal on my iPhone, iPad, and Mac, so all journals and entries are available and editable on those devices. To create a new journal entry on the Mac, click the Add button up here, or use the shortcut command N. Then just begin writing. From the toolbar at the top of the window, images or video can be inserted. We can also add a location or record audio for the entry. In the upper right, we can format our text to be a little less boring. As well as use markup to create a drawing or doodle for the entry. Click the back button, and that new entry will be saved and synced with the main journal. Here's how it looks over on my iPhone. Over in the sidebar, we have Journal Insights, as well as Places, which will put all entries that have a location entered with them on a map. Below, we can view all entries, along with our individual journals. I have my main journal and one other called Alaskan Cruise. We can create a new journal here on the Mac with a click on the Add button here. Then give it a name and assign both a color and icon to the journal. In Journal Settings, we can lock the Journal app, which will then require Touch ID or our user password in order to open it. In the Notifications section, we can set up a schedule which will remind us to journal at specific times. We can set this up to just occur once a week or as often as once a day. So that's a quick overview of the new Journal app for Mac. It can be a great way to reflect on the day and help retain memories.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to view all our Mac, iPhone, and iPad tutorials as they are released and ad-free, head over to themacu.com and use the code TMU30X for 30% off any membership. Every membership comes with a free trial, and it's easy to cancel whenever you like. The MacU tutorials are a great way to keep up with the technology and software that comes with your Apple devices.